And now, The Mike Miller Show.
Welcome back to the show. Only God and Barack Obama know how many more illegals have come across the border since we broke for the news. Someone who may have a better view on that joins me now. My good buddy Michael Hausum, fellow IJR brother in arms and budding superstar. Michael, you were on the Dennis Miller Show this morning.
I was, man. Our editor at large, Larry O'Connor, sits in for Dennis occasionally when Dennis is out, and we kind of had an IJR half hour, man. It was, Larry pimped IJR about every third sentence.
Dude, you guys got to invite me next time.
Well, shoot, man, I couldn't believe when I got the email yesterday. So, totally. It was a total blast. But I was just going to say, I popped in, listened to the live stream for about 5 minutes. Man, you were great. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's, I've got good practice every Monday with the Genius Mike Miller Show. So it was an easy lope.
Well, speaking of Mike Miller and Michael Hausum, here's a difference between my life and your life, okay? Here I am yesterday. Here I am yesterday, okay? 80 whatever degrees, humid. I'm out mowing the yard, and it's a big yard, okay? Sweat dripping off my nose. I'm sweating in my eyes. Trying to avoid the poison ivy at the end of the woods, right? Only got stung by one wasp, so that was good. So anyway, in between mowing, right, firing up the weed eater, pop into the garage to grab a cold one, check out the iPhone, lay there, see what's going on. I don't know why, but I open up Facebook. There, at the top of my news feed, is a picture of Hausum's toes and the beach and his wife laying in the sun. That's the difference between my life and your life.
Well, that was my daughter.
Okay.
But, well, I'll tell you what.
I'm sorry, I had sweat in my eyes, and I couldn't quite see what was going on.
You couldn't quite see. Yeah, that was one of my 7-year-old daughters. But, it wasn't all easy. I had to park a couple hundred yards away from where I walked down to the beach. Laguna Beach has paid parking, so I had to go back and refeed the meter after a couple hours. It was like, it's probably 100-yard walk down to the beach itself. So it's not like it was easy street, pal.
Yeah. Well, the wasp sting, that went away after a couple of hours. As far as I know, I didn't get into any poison ivy. And I apologize for confusing your wife with your daughter, especially if she was only 7. I did not have my contacts in because I don't wear those when I mow because I don't want to get, all the dust and crap on them. So, but I literally laughed out loud because, I said to myself, there is a difference between my life and Hausum's life.
Well, what? I just heard a knock at the door, and I think it's Child Protective Services to inquire.
Anyway,
that's funny.
A lot of goings on. I mean, the two big stories, obviously, this continuing influx, man. There's a picture on the front of Drudge right now. And it looks like people lined up at a Walmart, or maybe a Kmart for a blue light special. I mean, it's like 3 abreast, line as long as you can see. We got people in Guatemala being told on the news, if you're a mother with a child, head north, head to the United States, because they're not going to turn you back. They're not going to kick you out. I mean, dude, this is out of control.
Right. Well, you've seen that pamphlet that the Mexican government puts out about how to get into the States, how to access the various different benefits.
Right.
There's an entire industry south of our border of how to get in and do it and, access all the things that we do for them. I mean, it's nuts.
It's completely nuts. I did a story in the first hour about Eric, My People Holder now, grabbing $2 million out of a $315 million supposedly border security fund, using it to fund attorneys, paralegals to protect these people.
Well, Mike, the president has said that it's the president's comment was that that's an urgent humanitarian situation. How can you argue with him? Jeez.
Yeah. So, you know what my theory is? And, of course, we know Barack Obama is as thin-skinned as they come. When he doesn't get his way, he tries to stick it to you twice as bad. But this, particularly now, letting them come into Texas, dumping them in Phoenix, dumping them, you got some in San Diego area. It's just like, if you're not going to pass amnesty, path to citizenship, then I'm just going to bring them in. I'm going to let them stay here, and I'm going to stick them in Jan Brewer State and wherever else I can get away with it. Just like he promoted Susan Rice, just like that's part of what's going on. This is a petulant child who's not getting his way anyway.
Yeah, it is. The immigration thing. I grew up in the East County of San Diego, and it was probably from where my parents live right now. It might be a 20-minute drive at most through kind of inland, rural East County of San Diego to get from their house to the border crossing at Tecate. And so that was a constant thing. And in my experience growing up is, we had various work done in our home that, the phrase wetback was used, which of course you cannot say at all anymore, but we'd had these guys pouring concrete and this and that. And my impression was these are incredibly hardworking folks that have no opportunity at all south of the border. And frankly, even as a kid, I'm watching these guys out in my backyard, and I'm thinking, you know what? If I were in their case, in their shoes, I would do the exact same thing. However, that's not to say that. Good grief, man! The amount of money that is spent and wasted. There is a process to get in this country. You wait in the line and you do it. And jumping the line is wrong and it's illegal.
There's no question about it. Jessica, who is not with us today, and her sister Julia is, but talks about talking to her grandpa and other people. About that very issue. How can you guys be for this when exactly what you just said, Michael? They're jumping line. They're coming in place of people that we may care about, that are trying to do it right.
Right. Yeah, you hear about that story about that naturalized citizen in, I think he's from New Hampshire, whose wife is being held somewhere in the Middle East. And
yeah,
that's a case where citizenship laws reveal the sclerotic, insane nature. Here we've got the wife of an American citizen. That's actually a legitimate function of government, to protect its citizens. Yet we're doing all this other stuff for the illegal immigrants. I don't know about you, Mike, but here's my opinion on this whole thing. I think urgent humanitarian situation and all of that kind of stuff that we hear about from Holder and Obama and that, I honestly think what it is it's a extremely thinly veiled attempt to increase Democratic voters. You put voter ID on top of that with all this illegal immigration stuff. To me, honestly, it's a tacit approval that their argument of ideas to expand the Democratic base will not work. So what better way to increase voters, Democratic voters, than to give them stuff and just
increase the size of the country. I mean, honestly, that's what I think is part of what's going on here.
I agree 100%. I'm on a record for years of saying that, particularly or specifically relative to the whole illegal immigrant thing. And to expand that point, anything that they support can be connected in 2, maybe 3 dots to the same thing, to the ballot box. It's the exploitation of Black Americans. It's the
exactly.
It is. It's the kowtowing to, it's the pretend war on women. It's the LGBT thing. It's all of the above. And the dirty little secret, or the ugly little secret, is if Democrats cannot duct tape together a hodgepodge of disparate groups, they'd never win another national or statewide election again. It's what they do. It's what they have to do.
It's special interest focused. Absolutely no question about that. Yeah.
And see, I would argue, Michael, that we on the non-left, let's call us for argument's sake, are always accused of being racist whenever we oppose anything from, well, let's just stick on amnesty. I would argue that everything from that to voter ID laws or whatever have you, their perspective or their bent, if you will, has racist overtones, because to automatically assume that Hispanics will forever vote Democrat, I think is condescending. For automatically to assume, well, of course it's been safe to assume for over 50 years, going back to LBJ's War on Poverty, but therein lies the assumption of we just own these people. They're just going to vote for us, and this is why we do it. But it's all about votes.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. I was just looking at it, 71-27 Obama to Romney. The last election, here's another one that rounded off 75-25. So right now, 3 out of 4 Latino voters vote Democrat. And, the other thing that it makes me think about with that is, there's 2 parts of it. Number one is for the progressive left, the win is look how many people we are helping. The greater the numbers of people receiving some sort of benefit, that is the statistic that's pointed to as a celebration of caring and loving and government help. Whereas us on the conservative right, it would be how many people no longer need it. Now the left will twist that to say that, oh, you want to cut it so that there's just, it's they accuse us of just wanting not have people on those lists, whereas we're saying no. The important issue to us is how many people no longer need it.
But that's exactly right.
Right
on Reagan's birthday. I'm sorry, the 10th anniversary of his death last week, I read some quotes, and I have to paraphrase this because I don't have it in front of me, but exactly what you're saying can be encapsulated in one of his comments. And again, to paraphrase, he said something to the effect of the primary purpose of the welfare system in the U.S. should be to put itself out of business.
Right. Well, that goes to the other side of it. Is not just a general left-wing bias towards those types of record keeping, but also then you've just got the mission creep of the alphabet soup of agencies to begin with. I mean, the idea of a cabinet level or a sub-cabinet level department saying, all right, we are going to set ourselves up on a plan that 18 months from now, we don't have any more staff, we don't have any more infrastructure, we have no reason for being. This is what we're planning on doing. I mean, could you imagine that conversation happening in any of the halls of the buildings in Washington, D.C.? It would never happen.
Yeah, no. Because as I know, or at least I think we both believe, I think we agree, one of the objectives of the Democrat Party and this goes back to what we're saying as it relates to exploiting people of color, is to establish a permanent underclass. And the larger that underclass is that's beholden to the government, i.e. the Democrats, the more security they believe they have at the ballot box.
Right. And if you're part of that underclass, convinced that you can't do it without government help and aid, which party are you voting for and your family is voting for the remainder of your life?
Every time. And it's what's been called famously the soft bigotry of low expectations.
There you go.
So, hey, listen, man, you lit it up over the weekend, by the way, on IJR. I saw someone weekend. Obviously held a gun to your head, and you posted, as we all do, by the way. I posted the one last week, talked about it on the show. I think I called us Mo, Larry, and Curly. You and I had a fun back and forth on that. But, dude, yes. I think you were number one. Was it yesterday? On the planet. You were the number one followed social media guy on the planet.
That's right. Now, here's the thing, though, is, I put that thing up, and there's been some hilarious comments about it, is you and Kyle and Super and Emily live there Monday through Friday, right? I mean, you live there. Occasionally, Howerton from the Blaze is up there. So it takes the weekend when you've got whatever acreage you have to cut back your grass and everybody else is off doing stuff. Then I can sneak in, come up with some stuff over far less activity over the weekend. And then, of course, I have to refresh that NewsWhip post every 30 seconds and do an instant screen capture when I accidentally get to the top.
Your modesty belies your talent, dude. You lit it up. I mean, you really did. Because we all, and I think what we like about what we do, and I guess I'm speaking to the audience here as much as you, Michael, but we have a friendly competitive thing going on because it really does, and I'm not sure what goes on other sites that are anywhere near as successful as we are or as large, but we all genuinely like each other. I mean, we like to see each other do well, but, I mean, far be it from you or me. In fact, you started the phrase, if I beat you at something, you're more than likely to send me a short, "you're dead to me" message.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because
we do have a good time.
I think the fun thing about it is there's all this news and stuff going on that we talk about and think about. But an opportunity to actually make an impact and have a voice that gets heard and discussed with a perspective that we're framing in our lingo is incredibly fun, right? There's a race every day to find what could be something to launch off. Like Justin Charters, he's out here in the West Coast. He's up in Oregon.
Yeah. Great kid. What is he, like 27 years old or something?
Oh, most of the
clothes that I'm wearing are older than that cat, right? It's absolutely nuts. In fact, I made a joke about something political to him the other day that was some sort of political phrase that we would all understand. And I'm like, wait a second. That phrase was uttered before you were born. And he goes, I think it was something that Reagan said. He goes, yeah, it was before I was born, but I know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, okay, great.
He is a great young dude, by the way.
He sent me something last night at about 1:30. He goes, dude, this is a great story. You need to run with that. I'm lying in bed, one eye half open, the other totally closed. And I'm like, So I get up this morning. He did the piece. It's got, dozens of thousands of shares.
I love it. Before we move on, because I want to hit some of your stuff here.
Okay, cool.
It still just surprises me every once in a while that, and I've been at this for a while, but that we are as widely read and shared as we are. Not that we don't deserve it. But I mean, when you look at NewsWhip or any number of other indicators, measuring sticks, if you will, we're rocking it, brother. And thankfully, because to your point, we do have something to say, and we're part of that alternative media that the left just can't stand.
Well,
anyway,
frankly, shows like you're doing, like this, I think shows like this are incredibly helpful because, as you know, a big part of our traffic is the Conservative Daily site on Facebook. So, although places like Tucker Carlson from the Daily Caller, Town Hall, Guy Benson, there's a handful of guys that are very well known inside and outside the Beltway with sites that have similarity to ours, but get far more coverage. I think things that you're doing, like this on the radio, will even serve us better in the future as we become more than just, what does Rush call us? A backyard. Rush had some phrase whenever he's.
What did he call us? He called us a probably accurate local newspaper, I think he called us, or something to that effect.
Right, and I think that's because now for folks on Facebook, we just absolutely dominate on Facebook in terms of information. But I think we've only had one piece ever on Drudge. As far as national media exposure goes, I think that me being on Miller's show today that's got 300 stations around the country, I think that may be the most ever. We've never had anybody on Fox as an IJR guy or anything like that.
Right. And although several of us, you included, have had our articles mentioned by Rush Limbaugh.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and the one of the ones that I did last week, I think it was either the one on Austin, Texas, or the one on SeaTac. I had some people send me messages that those were read on a few different radio stations around the country. So that kind of stuff is fun, obviously.
It's a scream. I'm trying to. We've got probably 3.5 minutes. I want to do the Hillary clip. But I think we'll just go ahead and wait till after the news. We have managed to, you and I, Michael has said to me, because we talk about, what are we going to talk about? What do you want to do on a show? And Michael has said to me a couple of times, we could probably pick the first 3 or 4 stories on Drudge and do 2-3 hours just on that. Okay. So here we are, and, we've had a good time. We're about half finished. So among things we will talk about in the second hour will be this thing on Austin, Michael, is incredible. I mean, just to kind of tease that. And I think it's quintessential, maybe just a microcosmic view of what liberalism is all about in the first place.
Right. Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Vote for everything, want everything. When it comes time to pay the piper, let's shovel it off to someone else.
Right.
And then the deal out in Seattle, right? The $15 an hour now, SeaTac, and then didn't Seattle proper also vote in $15 an hour minimum wage?
Yes, they did. Right on the heels of SeaTac's in the process of failing experiment, Seattle proper is going to roll out the same deal.
This is just unbelievable. So we'll get into that. And then I played a couple of clips from the liberal media in the first hour. I don't know what's going on with these people. I mean, I do, but I mean, they're throwing liberals under the bus left and right now. So Mika even coming out, right? Mika Brzezinski coming out and hammering Hillary Clinton.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, when you lose Mika, then wow.
That's exactly what I thought. Because have you ever watched I can't watch a show, but you watch the clips, and when Scarborough, when he puts on his Republican mask, when he's hammering or someone else is hammering Obama or Clinton or whatever, she has this look on her face like she would just like to be anywhere else on the planet. But now, to your point, Mika even coming out and getting after Hillary.
Well, I have I've watched Mika a couple of times, but what I found to be more interesting, you can Google it. There's a website where you can get a video of a flatline electroencephalograph,
and you can just watch that flat line. And I find that to be more interesting and exciting than what Mika Brzezinski has to say.
I think that sums it up. Listen, this is the first half hour in the can with Michael Hausman. We will be back after the news. Michael Hausman. Back with my good buddy Michael Hausman. Okay, Michael, we got to get to this Hillary clip. I played part of the interview with Diane Sawyer in the first hour, where Sawyer was hammering Hillary for not taking any responsibility, passing the buck on Benghazi, which I thought was outstanding for a couple of reasons. One is it's true. Secondly, because Diane Sawyer actually did it. And thirdly, and I told the listeners this, as fun as it was to listen to the clip, to actually watch it and watch the deer caught in the headlight look on Hillary's face like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be doing this to me. I'm Hillary, was just priceless. So let's go to the clip, and then we'll talk about it. This is a post by Michael earlier. This is Hillary defending her speaking fees, saying that she and Bill were dead broke when they left the White House. So let's listen to that clip now.
Life of advocacy for girls, and at the same time the privilege, as she says, of doing her own scheduling, which includes so many speeches. And I think a lot of people, George, have in fact focused on the fact that she and President Clinton are making a lot of money. It has been reported you've made $5 million making speeches. The president's made more than $100 million.
Well, if you have no reason to remember, but we came out of the White House not only dead broke, but in debt. Money when we got there, and we struggled to, piece together the resources for mortgages, for houses, for Chelsea's education. It was not easy. Bill has worked really hard, and it's been amazing to me. He's worked very hard. First of all, we had to pay off all our debts, which was, you had to make double the money because of, obviously, taxes, and then pay off the debts and get us houses and take care of family members.
But do you think Americans are going to understand 5 times the median income in this country for one speech?
Well, let me put it this way. I thought making speeches for money was a much better thing than getting connected with any one group or company, as so many people who leave public life do.
I mean, that is classic, Michael. You can't make it up. Do we have Michael? All right, so Hillary, I'm not sure what happened to Michael.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, I was just, we just played the Hillary clip.
Right. Oh, yeah, I heard it.
It's just incredible that she is so out of touch. First of all, like I said, I mean, it's amazing in and of itself that that Diane Sawyer did this, because Hillary totally blindsided, expecting the Brian Williams type powder puff interview. But Diane Sawyer kind of took it to her. And for Hillary, I mean, this was just classic, some of what she said. I heard you talk about this a little bit on the Miller Show earlier, but what's your take on Hillary defending herself for her and poor Bill having been dead broke?
Well, you know how occasionally you'll write something that just spills out of you and you're laughing and giggling the entire time you're doing it?
All the time.
Baby, that was this one. I mean, she's broke. They're broke when they got out of the White House, but in debt. So, and what was that? Oh, it was legal bills because of the Whitewater real estate thing, Paula Jones' sexual harassment lawsuit, Monica Lewinsky's dalliance, and then, impeachment and perjury proceedings.
All self-inflicted stuff.
Also, well, no. Mike, geez, that was the vast right-wing conspiracy that
That's
that
right.
caused
I stand corrected.
Right? So that's one thing. Another thing that came to mind was that they actually, he was making $200,000 a year and got another $50,000 a year in expenses. And she earned $10 million on It Takes a Village in the middle of that. But apparently they blew through all of it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Stunning. And you actually pointed this out, and I did make the change on the piece there that she said houses.
Yeah, houses. Yeah. She didn't say, the mortgage on our house. She said the mortgage is for our houses.
Right. And,
wow.
Obviously, Bill, in the middle of all of this, he was disbarred. So it's not like he could go hang out a shingle and make money the old-fashioned way.
This is true.
He had to get creative so he could cobble together the scratch for, their house and their loan payments and stuff. Now, obviously, Hillary didn't mention that maybe as an ultimate fallback, she can once again trade cattle futures.
You know what? When just to interject something that is humorous to me only because it was humorous to the seminars I used to do, but when I was a broker, financial planner, right. I would do financial planning seminars, investment seminars, and
sure.
One of them, it was about asset allocation. I won't go into the weeds with this stuff, but I would say, now we're not going to talk about any get-rich-quick schemes today, and I can't remember exactly what I would say. But I would, and then I would put up a picture of a slide with Hillary smiling, and I would say, like cattle futures, and just guffaws would erupt. So anyway,
it would bring the house down. Well, I did. It was probably 20 years ago. A buddy of mine and I spent some money and bought a system from a guy that did that he was trading options, and it was all based on charts. So we were trading futures that was, cotton and corn and soybeans and things like that. And we each put in, I forget how much money, but we blew through $10,000 or $20,000 in the course of a couple of months. I mean, nobody makes money trading futures.
But I'm sure you had at least a couple of deals comparable to her cattle futures trades, right?
Yeah, the 1,000 into 100,000. No,
not so much. Yeah,
no. So what I did,
go ahead.
Is I wanted to find out, well, how much money? Because she says, "Hey, look, I thought making speeches for money was a better thing to do," and she's running around giving speeches on income inequality and all of that. So it's actually extraordinarily easy to figure out how much money we're talking about.
Okay.
Since leaving office, Bill Clinton has earned, now this is through 2012, because we don't have 2013 numbers. Since 2012, Bill's earned $106 million in speaking fees.
Right.
$736,000 a month. That does not include his presidential pension, Hillary's income as a senator and then as a secretary of state, and then, of course, the $1 million a year or so that we taxpayers kick in for taking care of some of his stuff. So, she said, I've done some free stuff, and giving speeches is probably a better, more socially responsible way to do it. They're earning pretty close to $1 million a month over the course of over a dozen years.
The incredible part to me about just listening to her there was how amazingly out of touch she is with real America. Even throwing in the part about, of course, we had to earn double because of taxes, but
yeah.
I mean, right. Okay. So now you're in Bill Maher territory, but
right. It's not like they got to keep all of that $106 million. Jeez.
That's right. I mean, they may have been reduced to 53 million of it, which now we are getting close to dirt poor or dead broke category. But I saw some of the house. I don't know where this was, Weasel Zippers maybe, but 2 or 3 of the houses, aerial views online. These are nice digs, man.
Yeah, if you look at their list of assets, they range the real estate value between $1 and $5 million as the value for those.
Mm-hmm.
So, a grimy attorney from the Rose Law Firm and a governor of a podunk state, they have parlayed their public service into one hell of a net worth.
You know, and to an extent, more power to them in America to be able to do that. But don't criticize hypocritically and chastise others who do the same thing.
Right.
So I don't know, man.
I totally agree. Now, the interesting thing to me, and I would love to get your take on it, is I think that this whole thing right here is her just getting out in front of the anticipated criticism of what they've done since Bill's left the White House for her presidential run. I think this is the equivalent of the prosecuting attorney giving the defense's case in advance in order to deal with the objections up front. That's what I think is going on.
Yeah, I mean, that thought crossed my mind when the Monica thing came out 3 weeks ago, you know, thinking maybe this is an effort by the Clintons to get out ahead of this. Now, when I suggested that, and others did as well, we were lambasted by the left, that, you know, that to think that the Clintons would be that devious, but of course they would. But I think that there's a good point to be made there. And who knows? I mean, maybe here we are giving Diane Sawyer credit for answering the tough questions. For all we know, Bill could have been standing there with flashcards, you know, having her ask the questions, to your point, to get this stuff out now, because I don't think it's going to be this walk in the park that many on the left think it's going to be for Hillary.
Right. Yeah, I don't know about that. That actually is a very interesting conversation. But in terms of her setting up a potential decision for running, the timing of this, the book comes out next month, right?
Right.
I mean, all of this stuff, the Monica deal, this thing, the interview, all of this is certainly to help justify the hefty advance that she's got, to help sell books. But I think it's all about honing and refining her image, which will be 2.5 years before the vote itself. So we're probably a year out before campaigning starts to begin. You don't think? I mean, there's no way that's accidental. I'm sure that they didn't sit down and go, well, look at this. This will give us a year to get this out in the zeitgeist, to get the interviews out there, and to get the talking points out there and part of the conversation. So all of these things are kind of understood and known by everybody before we ever have it. I don't think the timing of that's accidental at all. I don't
either. And, you know, never underestimate the ability of the liberal media to return to form. But there's part of me that thinks, you know, and this is them thinking maybe out loud in some instances, but listen, we backed this Obama horse to the point that we were made to look like fools, and we don't look like journalists so much anymore. Not that they ever cared about it in the past, but I don't know, and maybe this is wishful thinking, but part of me thinks that maybe going to be a little tough on Hillary this go around to try to regain some cred. Although, as I say that out loud, who knows? You know, I mean, maybe not. But I just think it's going to be fascinating, man. I really do. But the Clintons are a unique. They will be studying these people in political science classes long after you and I are gone.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I watched some of the clips. I was actually looking, that clip that you played, I was looking for that to throw that in my article. And I saw the kind of the teaser that Diane Sawyer had run, the way she answers the questions, how much she likes her age. I mean, all of the things she's just hitting and just stroking line drives down the third base line.
Just unbelievable, yeah. Unbelievable hanging curve or what have you. Listen, we got Austin taxpayers, which is an awesome story, and we got this SeaTac thing. Okay. Which one do you want to hit?
Let's talk about SeaTac because it feeds into an article I'm writing right now about California. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so in their infinite wisdom, the liberals in Seattle, first SeaTac and then Seattle proper, bumping the minimum wage up to $15. Right. Consequences forthcoming, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the main article is that the Seattle papers have had a bunch of different things to say. That since the first of the year, when the new minimum wage went into law, and SeaTac, it's the incorporated area right immediately around the Seattle-Tacoma airport there. So at the first of the year, the wage in that area went up to $15 an hour. It was kind of strong-armed through union tactics, as you could totally imagine. And there were a lot of citizens that were really upset. It was a smaller than usual city council that voted on it. I mean, there's a bunch of kind of smelly stuff that happened. But the results of that are being felt. Managers are taking on more responsibilities instead of hiring workers. There's articles and interviews with managers about that. Businesses themselves have laid off workers or eliminated plans to hire more folks. If you park in any of the parking lots that are run by the airport itself, they all have a little note on there with an additional living wage surcharge. Hotels are cutting benefits, no more overtime, no more free food for employees. There are legitimate and real and painful consequences, not even a half a year in to this silly experiment.
And why is it that people like you and I mean, we're not the sharpest crayons in the box, but we're certainly not the dullest either. I mean, no one would accuse us probably of being world-renowned economists, although maybe more you than I. But why is it that people like you and I can predict this, where folks like this, up to Barack Obama, can't?
Well, that's easy. History and results inform conservative opinion and policies, whereas for the left, it's hoped for results and imagination and dreams and good feelings produced that inform their decisions.
Right. And then and of course they're in a no-lose situation, because when the dire things happen that you just described correctly, then they blame it on the evil rich people who are too stingy and selfish to take care of their workers. So they can't lose.
Yeah, they're not held to consequence for that. All of those city council people, can you imagine for their next election campaign, regardless of what ends up happening with this minimum wage and what it kind of snowballs into, each one of those have now shot a little video short where they're sitting with a single mom with their 3 kids, or a dad with, a kid with cerebral palsy, or, I mean, you can just make up the stuff, and then they'll have a little interview, a discussion about how much this increased income means to them. And that they're going to have, the number of people that will be sitting outside that don't have jobs or that got fired or laid off. I mean, that stuff's the unseen part. But the seen part, the politicians, pursuing their most important thing, which is re-election, they're going to emphasize that.
Oh, absolutely. I did a thing, I think I initially did it a year or more ago on when the McDonald's thing started up. They targeted McDonald's, but they were after everyone else too, but the fast food workers. And I actually went through the math. I mean, I did a little research and determined what percentage of labor cost was incorporated in the price of a quarter pounder with cheese and French fries and the whole bit. And then I think they were at the time, maybe it was $10.10 an hour or whatever have you. But then I suggested that if the quarter pounder would increase to the price necessary under current margins to fund that $10.10, that I probably wouldn't be eating it anymore because I would go to a sports bar and have a real burger. So can you just imagine, I mean, the franchisees in that area, thin profit margins, the competition, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Right. Well, that leads into one that I'm going to put up right when we're done here. The state of California, it's always fun that we can talk about the idiocy that's going on out here. Last week, the state Senate in California passed a measure that would increase the state wages up to $13 an hour. And that's on the heels. On July 1st, California will have the third highest minimum wage in the country, 22 cents behind Washington and a dime behind the state of Oregon.
Okay.
And so California is one step away from putting a state wage. Now, you look at the population of Washington or Oregon versus the state of California. Right. The measure was approved last week for the state Senate. It's going to the Assembly. Democrats outnumber Republicans in the Californian State Assembly by slightly more than a 2-to-1 margin. So that's going to happen. So the state of California is barreling down the exact same path that CTAC is now discovering isn't working.
You just shake your head at this stuff because you know where it's headed. If you're logical, if you understand capitalism, free markets, supply and demand, if you understand any of that stuff with a modicum, you know where this is headed. Yet, to your point, and I guess to mine to an extent, it's never about results. It's about intent. And then I added to that, and they can always blame it on evil rich people for laying people off or moving their businesses out of the area or whatever have you, man. So it's just quintessential liberalism, which brings us to quintessential liberalism 2.0 for today, because this was another awesome post you put up, and this is this Austin taxpayers thing. I talked about this a little bit over the Friday show, but this poor woman, and I know nothing about her history or her politics or her financial situation, but if she doesn't encapsulate what's going on in the liberal thought process, I don't know what does. So let's talk about that a little bit. Property taxes in Austin skyrocketing, Michael.
Right. Her quote is so awesome. I'm at the breaking point. It's not because I don't like paying taxes. I voted for every park, every library, all the school improvements, for light rail, for anything that will make this city better. But now I can't afford to live here anymore. I'll protest my appraisal notice, but that's not enough. Someone needs to step in and address the big picture.
All right, so we need to dissect the hell out of that because, and listen, I laughed, but it is funny in a tragic way. The line, now I can't afford to live here anymore. And as I said, this poor woman, I don't know anything about her. She could be elderly on a fixed income or whatever and be like clueless. But this encapsulates the way liberals think. And if she's not one, she's, playing one not on TV, but at least at home.
Right. Yeah, the article that I pulled this from in the Austin Times or whatever it was, they're asserting that it's an unfair burden on the homeowners. But, she says it. It's the whole thing. She's agreed to spend money on every park, library, school improvements, light rail, and for anything. The idea that voting for those things has any connection with paying for those things
exactly
totally lost.
Completely lost. Listen, who wouldn't want all of that stuff and more if it was free, right?
Right. Oh, you go through, and I would imagine, if it's the way it is in California, that it's probably a bond measure. And if she took the time to read the voter guide, let alone the ones that were put out by any of the political parties, but if she took the time to read the voter guide, it would say something like raising $4.2 million for a new park outside of Austin, proceeds to be paid for by a slight increase in property tax wages. Experts agree that 42 cents per real estate appraisal value or whatever. I mean, of course we're going to vote for that.
Right. You know, I just, when I read this the very first time, it just is dumbfounding in its, in how exemplary it is of the liberal group thing. But the last line also is laugh out loud, where she has thrown her arms in the air. I can't live here anymore. I'll protest the appraisal notice, but that's not enough. But this line, someone needs to step in and address the big picture. That is just profound.
It's somebody needs to do something. We need to have, wait a second. The people that are proposing these things, I voted for. The measures themselves that call for paying for it, I voted for. Somebody needs to step in. Maybe wiser people, and I shouldn't vote anymore. Maybe that's the conclusion.
When my daughter was very young and she'd get in a panic about something and it didn't take much, she would say, "Daddy, do something." That's what this woman is saying.
That's right.
Do something.
You know what? And that right there, that captures it. The relationship that you had when your 5-year-old daughter said, "Daddy, do something." That's exactly what she's doing right there. Mike, that's it. That what your 5-year-old daughter needed from you is the position this woman has put herself in.
Exactly. And you know who I was and who this who the me to this woman would be is I had the checkbook and the bank account, and I was the one that would bail them out. And they want taxpayers to bail them out and keep making silly mistakes. So, yeah, Daddy, do something.
Right. It turns out, Mike, you cannot have your park, library, improvements, light rail, and not pay for them, too.
I have an inadvertent doorbell going off that I just muted. But anyway, listen, we're out of here, Michael. 10 seconds to go. I've enjoyed you as usual. Talk to you later, my friend.
All right, brother. Have a great day, man. See you.